It's March 7th, 2025. Welcome to your new backcountry snowpack summary brought to you by North Shore Rescue. It's been a fairly uneventful week for avalanches on the North Shore, despite having 25 to 30 centimeters that fell on Tuesday and Wednesday. But it actually bonded fairly well to the old surface, and there is very little reported in avalanche activity. Now, if you allow me to indulge in a little bit of vindication, I want to backtrack to the video of Friday, February the 21st, where I said this. Is that layer of preserved facet that's 120 centimeters down? Well, it's very unlikely for a skier to trigger that layer. I think that the weather that is coming certainly can. Now, of course, after that, there really actually wasn't that much avalanche activity reported. But most of the information that we get is where people recreate on the North Shore, which is often slightly smaller terrain. Now, in harder to reach places on the North Shore, that storm actually triggered this very, very large avalanche. So this was reported to me only yesterday. It was a size 4 avalanche. The two pictures that you're seeing here actually go side by side. So the crown was actually 1,500 meters wide, on average between 80 and 100 centimeters, and the avalanche ran for 800 meters and hit Palisade Lake with enough force to actually completely shatter the ice. And so that ran on the January 30th crest that we were so concerned about. And of course, the reason I'm telling you this is because we have another big storm coming this weekend. And I've also been told that I haven't really given a whole lot of food or booze related analogies lately in my videos. So I will call this storm coming beer before liquor event. So if you want to know more about what that means for the snowpack and your weekend plans, stick around for the snowpack discussion. This week we're on a southeast facing feature, but generally on a westerly aspect, just a little bit above 1,150 meters. And the first thing that stands out in the snowpack, of course, is the snow that we received on Tuesday and Wednesday. So depending where you are, somewhere between 25 and 30 centimeters. Here it has settled to about maybe 22. Underneath that, we have the snow that we talked about last week, which is mostly moist. At the top here, there's very large grain that's actually quite weak. And then it goes down to, of course, our January 30th crest. That's 110 deep in this profile. Now, we did try to test the January 30th crest in this profile because it's deeper than a meter. Then we used a deep tap test, and we didn't get any results here. But that's not to say that this crest isn't really still a slight source of concern. There's been reports from the Upper Sunshine Coast this week where people were saying that they could find some weak snow down around 100, which in all likelihood was probably that layer. I would say that generally speaking, for the North Shore, the higher you get, maybe the more likely you are to find an interface that is still weak for the January 30th crest. But for the most part, everything above has settled really quite nicely. So if we project this into the weekend, of course, if you're looking at the weather, this model here from this morning was calling for about 80 millimeters of precipitation throughout the weekend, and that of course is a big deal. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of precipitation. But just the precip amount in themselves is not really the whole story. So it's important to actually have a look at the profile of the storm, like the temperature profile and the wind profile of the storm. So if we're looking at the snow that fell earlier this week, so that's Tuesday, Wednesday, it was sort of a liquor before beer event. You know how the saying goes, liquor before beer, you're in the clear, meaning that it actually started warm and the snow was really sticky, and it bonded quite nicely to the moist snow that was on the ground. And with those warm temperature, we didn't really have a crust forming too much. It has refrozen a little bit, but at the time where this was falling, it was falling on a wet surface. And then gradually the temperature became cooler and cooler, and the snow became lighter and lighter as it kept falling, and ultimately during that period we didn't really get a whole lot of avalanche activity reported. It was, fairly decent skiing. What's coming, however, this weekend is very much a beer before liquor never got sicker kind of event, where if you're looking at the meteogram here, you can see that the storm actually begins reasonably cool, and then somewhere around this point here, somebody brings out the shot ski and everything goes sideways. So there's the temperature profile that's important, which is probably going to cause what we call upside down snow, so fluffy snow on the bottom with wet, dense snow on the top. And that, of course, doesn't really tend to stick to the mountain very well. The other thing that we're looking at too is the wind profile. So the storm comes in with reasonably light winds, and as it progresses, at the same time as the temperature increases, the wind increases quite a bit as well, which is of course going to cause snow to be deposited more on certain aspects than others, and also isn't necessarily great for snow stability. So all the ingredients are there in that storm for storm instability, and probably a natural avalanche cycle, especially if at the end of the storm it turns into rain. But then the other thing to consider is like 80 mils of precip is a lot. So that's quite a bit of extra load. And that January 30th crust is still there, but in few places. But definitely if you venture into bigger terrain, higher terrain, if you go further north in the sea to sky corridor, just on the margin of the North Shore region, I would say definitely I'm not quite ready to fully trust that this bond is good, especially with very large trigger like the storm that we have coming in. So again, it's got to be a weekend to be fairly tentative, have a close look to the storm, how it progressed, how much precip, and what the temperatures and winds are doing. So probably a good weekend to stay into pretty conservative terrain until that storm passes. That's all I got for this week. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week.